now, and because it's going to be here before we know it. Welcome to our group this morning. We are going to begin by doing self-introductions. And also, I want you to share one word about your organization that makes you smile. Just one word. And I will begin. I'm Hillary Graham, Executive Director of Higher Up Texas. And connections make me smile. Gail?
All right, I'm Gail Nelson, Executive Director for Family Promise of Brooke Creek. It's hard to pick one word, Hillary, but I guess it's families make me smile.
Some Kat.
Hi everyone, Kat Clemens with Bay Area Turning Point. I would say inclusivity.
Love it. Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard Gruen, retired now almost 3 years from being Director of Development and Communication from what's today's Harbor for Children. Being retired, what brings a smile to my face is volunteering.
Very nice. Joe.
I'm Joe McGinnis with Friends of Freeman Library, and what makes me smile is encouraging people to read.
Good one. Very important. Julia.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, Julia Gallagher with Bay Area Chorus of Greater Houston, and voices make me smile.
Nice. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I am with the Sanctuary Foster Care Services, and working with them and volunteering with them makes me smile just to help the children that are in need.
Love that. Christina. I have Christina.
I think her mic is off.
Jessica.
Hi, this is Jessica Peterson. I'm Director of Development at Interfaith Caring Ministries. And I'm going to say that it's one word, but I would say servant heart.
That's nice. Diana. Diana. How about Bobby?
Mic is off.
No Bobby. How about Sherry? Are you there?
Looks like her mic is off.
She's up. Okay, Montea.
Sherry's doing important chamber work. Hi everyone, I'm Montea McGee, the Membership Coordinator with the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. And I would definitely say a word that makes me smile that the chamber does would be advocacy.
Love it, love it. Brooke?
Hi everybody, Brooke Parkinson. I'm the Director of Volunteer Houston, and the one word that makes me smile is stories.
Gayla?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gayla Wilson, Program Manager at Volunteer Houston. And it's hard to define it down to one word, but diversity makes me smile.
I love it. Kia?
Good morning. I am Kia Gutter, Member Services Coordinator, Volunteer Houston. And one word that makes me smile is community.
And Tracy? Tracy? Well, I'll segue into Tracy. It's our spot to say thank you very much for our sponsor, Frost Bank. Tracy and her team are wonderful people who have decided to invest in our group. Without their support, this group would not be as tied together and well put. So thank you very much for that that support for this year, and hopefully next year too. Some housekeeping, please mute yourself, including me. I have a crying baby in the background if you hear that. She's got teeth, so that's really sad. And if you want to raise your hand or use the chat feature, you can do that. And now we'll go on to introducing our fabulous speakers. Brooke Parkinson is the Director of Volunteer Houston. an AmeriCorps NCCC alum, rescue kitten mom. Hey, I love that. I love that so much. Y'all know I'm a crazy cat lady. Back porch gardener, international traveler, information architect, and certified nonprofit professional. Thank you for being here this morning, Brooke.
Thank you.
And we also have from the Volunteer Houston team is Gayla Wilson, and she is the Volunteer Houston program manager, wife, sister, and lover of all things food, both consumption and preparation. She enjoys live music, gardening, and a lover of travel and adventure. And you sound really fun. Let me hang out with you. You've got
I am fun.
happening.
I'm fun.
So without further ado, it is time for them to take it away. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And real quick too, we have, you guys heard Kia introduce herself earlier. Kia Gutter is our newest team member, member services coordinator. She just started a couple of weeks ago. She's on week 3 with Volunteer Houston, and it has an amazing background. She is from Washington, D.C. She speaks 4 languages and has studied abroad and joins us from the events management industry. So we're very excited to have her, and she'll be speaking a little bit later as well. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. We are excited to talk about volunteerism during COVID, and we'll talk about 2 different research studies, one that we did here locally, and then another from Points of Light. Volunteer Houston is the Houston affiliate for Points of Light, and they just released a couple of weeks earlier this month a recent research study that looks at volunteerism as well as the civic engagement in general. So volunteerism, voting, activism, and donations and fundraising, but we'll focus on the volunteerism aspect. And then we'll share a list of resources and tools with all of you. And we'll send a follow-up email with links to all of the resources that we'll talk about today, so that if you would like to dig into those anymore, you certainly can. First, a little bit about Volunteer Houston. Volunteer Houston started in 1974 as a standalone 501c3, but in October of 2017, it was absorbed by Interfaith Ministries for Greater Houston. So we are now a program of Interfaith Ministries, but the mission never changed. We are still, our mission is on the screen. We connect individuals, groups, and companies with nonprofit agencies, which includes schools and government offices and sometimes corporate volunteer programs, to transform the greater Houston community for good through volunteerism. So I mentioned our connection to IM and to Points of Light, but we also work closely with Harris County. We are contracted to operate a volunteer reception center, or VRC, when it's activated by Harris County officials in response to a disaster. So that takes up so much time. This is my first year with Volunteer Houston, and disaster season is a true disaster season. It just never ends, but we're excited to help that effort. This is a quick snapshot of of what we offer and what we do in the community. First, we have a web-based portal where, of course, nonprofits and agencies can post their need for volunteers, and volunteers can browse those needs and respond to those opportunities through the web portal. Other than making the connection, there are several other features there. I like to highlight some of the features in the portal, which includes the ability for nonprofits to manage volunteer schedules. There is a check-in kiosk feature, which is, when your volunteers arrive on site, they can check in with a mobile app or with a tablet that you might have set up. And there's also a way to qualify volunteers. So if you're looking for specific skills, the system will automatically filter the volunteers that do have those skills. And then for volunteers, there's a volunteer resume feature I pronounced that really weird. Volunteer resume feature, which allows them to track not only the volunteer hours they do that they're connected to through the portal, but they can log all of their volunteer work in that one resume that can be shared with college, job, scholarship applications. That's our web portal, which can be done from anywhere, but because we're local, we also offer a number of services and programs through 3 different audiences for the agencies, for volunteers, and for companies. Gayla is our program manager and manages our corporate volunteer programs. So she'll completely customize a corporate volunteer project for local companies or for companies that are bringing a conference or convention to town. We recently just rolled out Service Projects to Go, which is a great fit for the pandemic world that we're all living in. Also, there's the Volunteer Corps program, which is an opportunity for individual volunteers. We've been running it for about 2 years now, for individuals in the Houston area to come together once a month to do a service project for a local organization. And the coolest thing about that program is its diversity. I just started with Volunteer Houston in late February of this year, and so was, kind of have learned about the programs, but was lucky enough to join the team in the midst of a cohort that was already in progress for Volunteer Corps. And seeing, the age range is across the board. Ethnic backgrounds, heritages are across the board. It's just so cool to see those people come together and work towards a common goal for a local organization. So that's enough about us. Oh, no, it's not. Let me introduce the 3 of us, which you guys have already been introduced to. So I'm going to skip over this slide real quick and get straight into the local survey that we conducted. So I'm going to hand it over to Gayla to talk more about that.
Okay, and Brooke, are you going to move slides as needed?
Yes, I will. Just tell me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the first slide we want to talk about is a survey that was done. Immediately after the pandemic, there were a lot of different community surveys that were appearing on the web, whether they were focused on households, business owners, renters, small businesses, really around the whole concept of how they were impacted by the pandemic and maybe possibly how they were having to shift things in terms of their ability to acclimate to virtual learning for their children, or how would they shift their business model now that they were having to shelter in place. But there really wasn't anything around the whole idea of volunteerism. And for so many individuals, on this phone call and in the community who really do enjoy volunteering, think about, and I apologize, I believe Bob, who's with the rodeo and being retired, and how he said volunteerism was his one word. And so there are a lot of people that really probably had to shift and think, okay, so now how do I continue to be a part of a community when I can no longer volunteer because agencies have to immediately revamp how they do things. So this survey was conducted in late April to early May, and we had just about 1,700 respondents. But what we saw was that the greater majority of volunteer responses were concentrated in zip codes, for the most part, west of, let's say, downtown Houston. So there are some outlying areas as well, but there was a higher concentration really going to the west. And so what this told us is that as an agency, we probably were not as engaged in outlying areas outside of Harris County, especially to the east. If you think about maybe Chambers County or Liberty County, or even just East Harris County, we worked with organizations in that area. And one of their concerns has always been is that people think, because they're Harris County, they get all this support through the city and through Harris County, but because they're on the east side, and that would be, Channelview and some of those areas, they really are a pretty much overlooked area. So what this taught us is that, or showed us, is that really a lot of the volunteer respondents are not in certain pockets and areas of town that might have a greater need. And so what did this give us as an opportunity to really help to increase engagement in that area? Next slide, please. So based on the percentage of those searching who actually responded. So what this showed is we took a snapshot basically from February through March. And so this information actually came from our portal last week. And so what it showed us is that the percent of volunteers who actually search and respond to needs on our website, on our portal. And so if you look at the numbers starting in February, The months were a little bit colder, but there is still a higher percentage of individuals who search and actually respond to needs. Because even if people are inside and the weather here can be pretty decent during certain times of the year, people still have an opportunity to get out, engage, and do things in person. Then when the COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, naturally, the volunteer responses dropped substantially. Because again, we were on lockdown, but again, too, a lot of agencies were really having to shift as to what their new volunteer model was going to look like. April, of course, it dropped a little bit lower. And then as things started to make, I think maybe when we had the first restrictions lifted in May, the numbers started to go up. And they continued to increase basically to the level that they were pre-pandemic in June. Then Father's Day happened, and we started seeing a decline in the number of volunteers due to additional lockdowns that the city was having. Now, the numbers started to go back up and actually increased a little bit higher in August due to Hurricane Laura. And so naturally, everyone wants to rally. They want to see how they can help. What are things that they can do? And so that gave us a really great opportunity. And then plus two, we still had college students who might have been at home that had not yet transitioned back to college because their schools were going to be virtual for the first semester, or they were choosing to stay home and do an at-home program. And then naturally, starting in September, there was a decline. And historically, we've seen this decline. I've been on board with Volunteer Houston for 2 years and started actually September of 2018. And historically, every year during the summer months, we'll see a little bit of a peak and then it'll drop off. It picks back up in August as organizations are starting to drive their needs for back to school events and things like that. And then historically, we have seen a decline in the month of September. And that's just a historical snapshot of typically how people are responding and the other activities that they're more focused on and engaged in. Next slide, please, Brooke. So if we look at before and after and how many hours per month, what this tells us is that before the pandemic, it kind of gives a snapshot in terms of the number of hours people really are willing to volunteer. So based on the information that we pulled, the majority of the volunteers are willing to commit 4 to 10 hours per month, no matter what disaster strikes. So whether it is pre-COVID, if it's post-COVID, there's still a higher number of individuals that are willing to volunteer. And so it is down a little bit, but it does have, a pretty significant opportunity of individuals who still really want to have some level of engagement. And I think a lot of that is really driven by the fact that people still are interested in finding a way to give back one way or the other. Maybe they can't do the full 10 hours that they would have done if we weren't in a pandemic, but the fact is that they're still willing to do something. And so again, 4 to 10 hours is about the sweet spot. And really, if we think about a good percentage of the needs on our site, if they happen to be an ongoing opportunity related to maybe mentoring and things like that, usually that's pretty much the sweet spot that most of our agencies focus on. If they can get someone to commit on average 4 to 10 hours a month, that really does help them in terms of program building, capacity building for their organizations. The next slide, please, Brooke. So when we think about in-person versus virtual and remote, I can remember a time really when all of our virtual and remote opportunities were organizations that probably had a very small Houston presence, but really probably were headquartered or based somewhere outside of the Houston area. And they were looking for more higher skilled level volunteers. And it's not that that's not the case now, but when COVID happened, a lot of local organizations had to shift their model. We did a workshop shortly after the pandemic started. We had about 70 nonprofit leaders on there. And we talked about the concept of radical flexibility and radical trust and how that really was going to be very essential for nonprofit agencies when it came to restructuring how they did their volunteer programs. If they had to do staff layoffs or furloughs, then what roles that maybe a staff member was fulfilling that might be a little bit more higher classified, could they be willing to give to a volunteer to perform those duties and still be able to operate. So what this tells us here is that about 1/3 of all the respondents are open to volunteering virtually, which is a good thing because that is going to continue to be, whether it's pandemic or not, that is going to be continually an opportunity to really engage individuals who maybe we're post-pandemic and things are opened back up to a greater level. However, there are going to be individuals who will feel more comfortable utilizing their skills in the evening to do skilled work and things like that. So while about 1/3 of the respondents were open to volunteering virtually, but only about 25% feel ready and equipped for virtual opportunities. And equipped might be having the right technology, having sufficient technology, feeling comfortable navigating Zoom or working with different web-based portals. So the open about virtual volunteering, about 1/3, but then only 25% of those really feel like they're ready and equipped to virtual volunteer. Okay, Brooke, our next slide, please. So here's where we have a great opportunity for nonprofits. If we think about on this chart, you know, a lot of people are less inclined to volunteer in the wake of a pandemic because things are just uncertain. But a lot of people also kind of have a neutral feeling around volunteering. So it's more of an opportunity to say, hey, if people remain neutral to volunteering, it really means that they're not against volunteering. They just need to be asked and engaged. And I think this kind of does go back to the mention earlier when we met with nonprofit leaders and we talked about the concept of virtual volunteering and how they had to really be willing to utilize radical trust, which means giving individuals that might not normally have access to information, but then flexibility. So your hours are from 8:30 to 5, but if you've got someone who says, you know what, hey, okay, maybe I can do this virtual thing, but I can't do it during the daytime hours because my kids are at home or I'm working, but is this organization open to me volunteering in the evening after 8 o'clock, as long as it gets done? So that's kind of where we are at this point. And so it really does present an opportunity for nonprofits just to really try to see how they can recruit and engage and ask individuals to be open to volunteering, whether it's virtual or in person. So if everyone would just take a moment to put a response in the chat box. What has been your biggest volunteer engagement challenge during the pandemic?
Well, we're such a small group. If you guys want to just chat it out, you're welcome to as well. Involvement. Is that so, Sherry? Is that because you weren't sure how to involve them safely, or?
No, I think it's involvement. I think it's participation. We're so accustomed here to having the best volunteers around, and they are involved in everything we do. And so I think it's people learning a new way of doing their job, first of all, or taking care of their family. And then us having to pivot on how we do events, but we still want the people. We still need that energy and those folks to get things to roll around here, as several of your folks are a bunch of my volunteers. So they know very well that, but I think it's participation, involvement, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think you're right. One of the biggest distractions that we learned well, and I think it was safe to assume, but it proved itself in the data that we collected in the survey is that the priority became taking care of themselves, their families, and most certainly their most at-risk important people, whether it's family or neighbors or what have you. So
yeah, and and it's interesting, Sherry, because I work with a lot of corporate clients, and I think that there's this kind of this belief that young people, for the most part, are really not afraid of the pandemic, that they want to go out and be engaged and things like that. And I find that a lot of organizations and individuals have really said, you know what, my staff is just not that, they're afraid. They really have a greater concern, and the majority of their staff and employees are under 40. And so I think there is a myth around the fact that people think that, the greater majority of young people have no issue going out and engaging and things like that. And I think that is definitely not true. I think everybody has their own level of concern and fear.
Right.
And so I have a question for Christina, because you said finding volunteer opportunities while we are closed. Is that specific to your agency, or just in for you to go out and volunteer, or for volunteers to be recruited for your organization?
Well, for us, so I'm at a library and we are currently closed to the public. So part of our issue is, we want to make sure the volunteers that we've had stay engaged with the library and the work that they did, but we don't really have much for them to do while we're closed. And once we open, there'll be all the other issues about what we'll even be allowed to do, but keeping them involved virtually or reaching out, and they want to stay involved, but we don't have right now a lot of things that they can do for us. So trying to figure out how we can kind of keep them engaged, because we would like them to return in the future so that they don't lose that connection with us.
So I wonder if it's possible, if it's a possibility, since clearly you all are in the Clear Lake area, and there may be an opportunity to maybe, for lack of a better word, to kind of maybe loan them out to another agency in need. Because I think if people are engaged in your overall core mission, they're going to continue to want to volunteer with your organization. However, if there happen to be a different organization that says, hey, you know what, we really need some help with data entry or whatever else, and you've got individuals who have that level, maybe they are, and maybe that's just a 1 or 2 time opportunity, but it still helps them feel like that they're fulfilling their own personal need. So that could be certainly an opportunity as well, is to encourage them to still seek out opportunities, maybe not ongoing or long-term, but just 1 or 2 on occasion, to still keep that level of engagement. Because I believe that if people are inherently tied to your mission and the work you do, they're going to always come back.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. And I would love to hear, what opportunities other area organizations have, because, we would like to share those with other people, or with because we do find that a lot of our volunteers volunteer at several organizations within the community, and I'm sure you guys see that as well. So, so I would love to hear what other people are doing.
Well, one resource I want to share with everybody, because I think the big theme, one of the themes in your responses, is safety. I don't know if you all are aware of the Houston Community Tool Bank, which is a local nonprofit here. In before pandemic times, they were renting out mostly power tools, or a lot of times event supplies at, ridiculously discounted rates, a penny a day for a hammer, for example. Since the pandemic has hit, of course, their business has gone down, but they've shifted to focusing on providing and renting out. Actually, it's all free right now to nonprofits. Are things like hand sanitizing stations, the plexiglass dividers, the infrared remote control thermometers. So if you guys do have a need to engage volunteers, but you don't have the gear and equipment to do it safely, I highly encourage you to reach out to the Houston Community Tool Bank. You can rent for free, essentially borrow all of that equipment to set up a safe environment for volunteers, or, not just volunteers, but whatever gathering you might be coordinating. And we'll share that link with you as well.
Yeah. And then Richard, you mentioned, and I know that safety has always been a huge concern. And so when we first shifted to posting more COVID-19 related opportunities on the Volunteer Houston site, one of the things that we initially required was for the agencies to include or to respond to 2 or 3 questions around safety. You know, what was their safety protocol in terms of screening? So were they screening with, you know, a questionnaire, yes or no? Were they allowing sufficient time in between shifts? Let's say if they were putting together bags of food for food pantries, are you allowing enough time in between shifts so that sanitation and cleaning could be done? But I would like to say that all of the agencies that are still doing that type of work where it's in person and they've lowered the numbers, either they've lowered the numbers down to a very safe and manageable number and they have it down pat in terms of safety, or they are doing those things in terms of ensuring that there's PPE, mask and gloves and sanitation, and hand sanitizer and hand washing statements. So the majority of the agencies that we deal with, actually all of them that we deal with, we've never had a concern from a volunteer post response saying that they got there and they did not feel safe.
Okay, thank you, Gayla. We could spend so much time talking about the questions and challenges and concerns. I want to, for time's sake, move on to the next topic. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the Civic Life Today research that recently came out from Points of Light that I think will give you guys some hope and some motivation moving forward. I'm not going to read through all of these key themes of American civic engagement, but a couple of highlights there are that 2 out of 5 people, not volunteers, but 2 out of 5 Americans will do more to get involved than they did before the pandemic. So there is hope after we get past the stay-at-home orders. And then also number 5, those most interested in volunteering have a notably stronger preference for activities that they can do on a regular basis and in person. So I think this means we'll be able to take advantage of, again, once the pandemic has passed us, not only engaging volunteers in person again, but really focusing on cultivating our volunteers to be repeat volunteers. And if we communicate what those opportunities are, the likelihood that volunteers will commit and come back on a regular basis is very high. So I just have 3 slides for you. This first one takes a close look at the different generations and how they are engaging in civic life. What's most interesting is, I know the colors on the legend are a little bit hard to see, but yellow is Gen Z, which is our youngest generation just out of high school. Millennials and Gen X, millennials are orange, Gen X is green, and then boomers and the silent generation are blue. So you can see on this chart, what we're looking at is the activities, civic activities that each generation has participated in over a year's time, and the percent from each generation that participated in each of these activities. So you see that Gen Z is very active, except for, Gen Z again is yellow, except for when it comes to donating money. And that's very likely because they're young and just aren't settled in a career and have a steady income yet. And then also the very bottom, voting. And that's again because they're very young and may not have even had an opportunity to vote in an election yet, or maybe not a presidential election anyway. But it's an interesting trend there that you see our young ones are very active. And so that's a population that I think would be beneficial for organizations to focus on when we are able to engage volunteers in person again. They do like the in-person interactions, which leads me to the next slide, or actually it'll be the next one first, is these are the barriers to volunteering. So what's important to the volunteers is to find, the theme here is find meaningful opportunities. So you can, let's see, where is our highest or listed first? Unsure how to get involved or where to find opportunities. I think for us as organizations, that comes down to communication and promotions. Also cannot find opportunities near me. In a city like ours, you know, this research was done nationwide, not just in the Houston area. This is an interesting challenge, I think, locally. You know, of course, I'm a little biased and I see Volunteer Houston portal as a way to combat this barrier because there is a map feature. I mean, anyone who looks in the, as long as organizations are posting an address of the volunteer opportunity, there's a map feature where you can quickly see what's close by. So just good to know for all of you. And then third at the top is not sure what I can do that would be helpful. And again, I think that comes down to messaging and how we message our opportunities and communicate that the work that they're doing actually is helpful. I mean, sure, we need people to stuff envelopes or, you know, replace boards on a broken fence, but how is that really being helpful to the organization, to the organization's clients, to the community? One of the things that Volunteer Houston does that we've started to do recently is focus on the service learning aspect of all of our programs and services that we offer. So we also always facilitate a reflection conversation. Of course, right now it's via Zoom, but it's a moment where we stop. We communicate, it's always after the project, we communicate to the participants the impact that they had in the way of numbers, or maybe we were able to capture some comments from clients that are benefiting from the work they did. But then we also ask, you know, what's your one takeaway from this experience? And so we highly recommend that any organization that is engaging volunteers intentionally stops and takes a moment to have that conversation with your volunteers, because all of the research out there shows that volunteers want to know about the impact they make. Yeah, it feels good to get out, meet new people, maybe do physical labor, but what kind of impact is that actually having? Our nonprofits have a responsibility to communicate that back to the volunteers. So top incentives for volunteering. Our top ones again are listed near the, well, they're not in order here, but I first want to point out the green boxes. These are both specific to mental health issues. This is saying that this is specific to Generation Z especially. This survey was actually done in March, April, so near the very start of the pandemic. But so what was so interesting is that, and after the pandemic hit, I think we have all heard so much talk about self-care and mental health and addressing it. That it just needs to be talked about and needs to be addressed. And it's become much more prevalent after the pandemic started. But this is showing us that these were already top trends in among Generation Z prior to the pandemic hitting, that the benefits of volunteering, the mental health benefits of volunteering are important to the volunteers, you know, just the social aspect of meeting new people, interacting with people who share the same values as you, and maybe even specifically volunteer opportunities that address mental health and wellness. So a couple of other top incentives, a very top one is being invited to volunteer by a friend. I think this is something, honestly, until I saw this little piece of data here in this research study, which we'll send you the full study afterwards. I hadn't really honestly thought about encouraging the volunteers who do show up to come back again and bring a friend next time. The data is telling us that they're more likely to show up and respond when you approach it in that way. So just some tips and things to consider as we move forward in the pandemic and try to find ways to continue to engage our volunteers so that we don't lose them as a volunteer, and that we do it safely. So how are we doing on time? Let me ask that first.
I think we're about 15 minutes left, Brooke.
Okay, well then I'm gonna skip ahead real quick because I know we have some more info to share with you, and then we'll definitely have some more Q&A. So Gayla, I'm gonna hand it back over to you to talk about our resources and tools.
Okay, let me make sure. And my apologies, I think somebody is mowing right outside my window. So if you hear a noise, it's the lawnmower outside the window. So some of the resources and tools that we have at Volunteer Houston, of course, we have a full range of research reports that, are available to nonprofit agencies. And again, information like that we'll provide after this in terms of the survey results from Points of Light around civic engagement. So that's one of the many research reports that we can provide. And then as an agency, you can pull information if you're registered on the site. There's always information that you can pull from our site in terms of the volunteer information and things like that to a certain degree. The next item is our Nonprofit Leaders Forum. So we started this, I believe in June, with the intent, May or June, with the intent of gathering a group of nonprofit leaders, really with just more of the opportunity to just kind of dialogue and talk amongst each other. And a lot of these are leaders that probably had not actually had a chance to meet or engage in person just because they're different interests and causes for their programs and life gets busy. So because we had to do it in COVID times or pandemic times, we did a online, a Zoom presentation. So what it is, it's basically a bi-monthly gathering, and a nonprofit agency can bring a topic of interest if they'd like for us to present, or they're willing to present. They're hosted bi-monthly. The next one is coming up on October the 27th. And we really try to tailor the topics around topics that would really be beneficial to a nonprofit agency. So we have one coming up in October, next week, and we're going to cover more information about civic engagement and volunteer engagement during COVID times. And then also kind of what is your brand? A gentleman is going to present some information about what is your brand and getting your brand out there. But we've done them on the top 5 myths of volunteering, and kind of for leaders to understand what items, should they be doing with volunteers, and things that maybe they thought that were, something that they shouldn't do in terms of volunteer engagement that actually probably are not the path to go. So there's also a Facebook group which you can join as well. And it's just an opportunity for nonprofit leaders just to get together and dialogue and, bounce ideas and things off of each other. On November the 19th, we are having a COVID briefing and mental health workshop. We are a program affiliate of Points of Light, and so in conjunction with Points of Light and Starbucks, we are hosting this event, and we'll basically have an opportunity for an official from Harris County or the City of Houston Health Department to give kind of a COVID update to nonprofit agencies. And then the meat of the presentation is going to be a mental health workshop that'll be geared toward nonprofit leaders and agencies and their staff, and then eventually clients around mental health wellness in the times of pandemic. It's going to be presented by Mental Health America for Greater Houston, and we think it'll be a great opportunity. So you'll get information on how to register and respond to that. We will have a workshop on understanding racial inequity and social justice in Greater Houston, and that is tentatively scheduled for December, but we're finalizing the date. Brooke, you want to talk about the Service Matters blog and newsletter very quickly?
I do. Yes, I'm super excited to share that. Again, so much of what I've learned in my first several months on the job here is that nonprofit leaders in the entire Gulf Coast region are just looking for ways to connect with each other. So we're rolling out a new blog called Service Matters, but and while we'll certainly be writing much of the content, our hope is that we will have contributors just like you all, writing from your own perspectives, And you know, the topic is volunteerism and service learning. So anything and everything and any angle and every angle you can think of, we'll be rolling that out later this week, and will include simple tips like, you know, the content Gayla just mentioned. We'll have subject matter experts contributing as well. So that's coming out soon. I would encourage you to subscribe. We are also working on an event in April 2021. It's a volunteerism event. It's called Houston Together. We are collaborating with 5 other local nonprofits to, it'll be a virtual event with some service projects scattered throughout the community. But this is an opportunity open to the community, free to the community. It's an opportunity for nonprofits to essentially register as an exhibitor. So you'll have a virtual booth. And what we will do is promote the event through our local media, through community calendars, honestly, through any channel we can to encourage people to volunteer and get to know their local organizations. So it's an opportunity for nonprofits to recruit new volunteers, to promote your own missions and causes. So more information coming soon on that, and we'll share that with you as well. And then, of course, there's the Volunteer Houston portal. It sounds like many of you, of course, are already using that. But at any point, if you have questions on how to navigate through that or how to use some of the many features that it offers, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm going to, on that note, we're going to hand this over to Kia to talk more about our STAR membership for agencies.
Okay, all right. So we have 2 levels of membership. You have your basic membership, but also we offer a STAR membership for our agencies, which is $75 annually. And again, it includes everything in your basic package, but some of the
Which is free, by the way.
Free, yes. So you can just go on and you can click the link at the bottom. volunteerhouston.org/agencies. But it includes, it's a little, has a little more meat to it. So you have like discounted background checks that is offered. You've got the personal onboarding orientation. And you also get boost on social media with mentions on our social media channels, and then at our recruitment events as well. And then you also have that list of the nonprofit related workshops and trainings. You also would get like a discounted booth at the annual Houston Together event, which is coming up in April, which is going to be virtual. And then also, as we were talking about, the bi-monthly structured gatherings, once we eventually get to be in person with complimentary refreshments. And of course, you have the digital badge on our agency portal as well. So
that's it. Thank you, Kia. So I think we've already had some pretty solid reflections from the group here, but anytime we do a presentation, you know, we always throw so much information out there that I like to wrap it up with the one thing, which is actually a book by Gary Kaler that he really focuses on time management and managing priorities. The saying goes, if you chase 2 rabbits, you will not catch either one. So my question to you all in the chat box, or if you want to unmute and just shout it out, what's your one takeaway from all of this information that we've shared today, specific to the research studies that are out there, or what would you put into practice? Any thoughts?
This is Joe from Friends of Freeman Library. I like the idea that there are resources out there through Volunteer Houston, and I'll look at those more closely now.
Right on. Good to hear. Yeah, and if there's, I mean, we're a small team and we're a local team, so if there's anything else we can do, just reach out to us personally as well.
I
The
love
Gen Z, oh, go ahead.
the Houston Tool Bank that you shared. I never knew that existed, and I have a need for that. So thank you.
Good. Good. Yeah. Happy to make the connection. So Christina said the Gen Z research was encouraging, new generation of volunteers. It's very true. They're a new generation of volunteers and they're very active in their communities, which is promising for all of us, I think. I'm excited about that as well.
Hey, Brooke, are you going to share information on the mobile app as a follow-up to everybody on the call? I think Richard was wanting to know what the mobile app.
Yes. Yeah, we'll send it in a follow-up email, but to answer your question real quick, the name of the app is Get Connected. And that it's actually a feature. We use Galaxy Digital for our platform for the web portal. So it's their mobile app. Once you download Get Connected, you will be able to choose from local platforms, and Volunteer Houston is one of those. And so download Get Connected and then select Volunteer Houston, and you'll be connected to the portal through your phone, mobile app.
Yeah. And then I want to add one thing. I know we're coming close to the end. On November 21st, as an affiliate of Points of Light, we will be promoting volunteer opportunities specific to Family Volunteer Day. And basically, that's a global initiative through Points of Light. And this is the 30th anniversary. And it's really designed to get families together to engage in volunteer opportunities specifically on that date. And those opportunities at your agencies can be both in person, small group to make sure that you are adhering to social distancing and CDC guidelines for safety so individuals feel safe in person, but also virtual. So if you need cards made for your organizations to give to clients or things like that. So we do encourage you to post any volunteer opportunities if you have them for Family Volunteer Day. When you put the need in there in the system, you can actually select Family Volunteer Day as an initiative, and it'll be highlighted on our page under the dashboard. So it's a great chance to engage families in activities. We've done them in the past, and we've always done larger events in person. But last year we did one in conjunction with Harris County, and we planted trees. And then for the family members who had smaller kids that didn't want to go, what kid didn't want to go outside, but maybe the parents wanted to keep them indoors or they were too small, they made Thanksgiving centerpieces that were then donated to the community center where we were volunteering. So there's always a way that you can engage a family. And so we do encourage you to consider November 21st, posting volunteer opportunities for families in your areas in ways to get back, whether it's a book drive or it's reading virtually online or collecting essential supplies and giving them to an organization, or just making phone calls to seniors or those who are feeling isolated during this time.
Yes, thank you,
So
Gayla.
much for all this wonderful information. I see a lot of great comments in our chat box about what people are taking away, and we'll have an opportunity within our group to unpack this and share in the future of what we're doing now to be radical flexibility. I love that. So thank you so much. Y'all are the experts in this arena, and we couldn't thank you more for spending this morning with us.
Welcome.
If anybody else has any questions, will y'all be able to provide, you're going to send some links to us in the group. But y'all have been so wonderful. Thank you very much. And I'm going to now pass it back to the chamber for announcements.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Just a few quick announcements before we say goodbye. Some upcoming events we have. Tomorrow we have Business After Hours. It's going to be at South Shore Harbor Resort and Opus Bistro and Steakhouse. It's going to be from 5 until 6:30. And make sure that you RSVP for that, just so we can kind of keep track of, who we have attending and whatnot. Then on Friday, the 23rd, we'll have our coffee break catch up. It's just a short half-hour networking event that we do at 9:30 every other Friday. So make sure you sign up for that so I can send you the Zoom meeting. We've been having a really great time for that. It's just been a fun way to connect really quickly and do a little bit of networking every now and again. General membership luncheon will be next Wednesday, the 28th. It will be at South Shore Harbor. Right, Sherry? No, not South Shore Harbor.
Lakewood Yacht Club.
I get all of the resorts and the clubs and things like that messed up. So don't listen to me. But today is the last day to make reservations for in person. If you want to attend the luncheon, make sure that you buy your tickets. Actually, tomorrow is the last day. So make sure you buy your tickets today and tomorrow. And then you can still sign up to attend virtually up until Tuesday before general membership luncheon. We'll have our diplomats meeting next week as well on the 29th, and that will be at 8:30. And if you are not yet a diplomat and you're interested in becoming one of our chamber ambassadors, you can just reach out to us here at the chamber to get some more information about that. We'd love to send you info for the meeting so you can join us and see what that's all about. On November 3rd, we will have our business development seminar. It will be held in person as well as virtually. It'll be at main event. It'll be at a regular time at 8:30. We're really excited to bring that back. So make sure that if you're wanting to attend in person, you're filling out the right RSVP for that as well as virtually. We're very, very excited to bring that back in person, as well as excited to still host it online because we've been getting, great attendance for our business development. It's a great program. And then last but not least, we'll have our Leadership Awards Luncheon, which Ms. Sherry, I'll have you touch on that.
Great. Business after hours tomorrow, so you guys don't have to worry. We're going to be out at the pool. So
Yes.
we're going to be outside. And so I hope you'll make it, see some friends. We'll keep social distancing because their pool area is huge. So you'll have delicious food, you'll have some adult beverages, and you can wave to your friends from afar or bump elbows or whatever you'd like to do. But we are outside at the pool, so no worries on that. The general membership luncheon is at Lakewood Yacht Club. If you want to attend, it's going to be a limited number of folks actually in attendance. And then Montoya, our guru, is going to make sure that the virtual is fabulous. For business development on November 3rd, Julia, our division chairman, is right there, but it is going to be Barbara Cutzinger with Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership. She's the guru in town that lets us know what new businesses and buildings and all kinds of new things are coming to the area, which really does affect us all, but mainly nonprofits too, because you're going to start finding out what other businesses are coming in town, more people to come volunteer, more money to spread around when we all are asking for sponsorships and donations. So you don't want to miss that on November 3rd, in person and virtual. Main event is donating their huge room to us. They'll have classroom style tables. So it'll be very socially distant. You'll be by yourself at a table, that kind of thing. So I think it'll be a good, safe morning. The last thing we want to mention, November 10th is going to be our Leadership Awards Luncheon. Because of the pandemic, we are not having our annual Chairman's Ball, which is our adult prom every year. It's a blast of an evening, but because of the pandemic, we're not doing that, but we are still wanting to celebrate you, all of our members, for a year that we all survived, I hope. And so November 10th, it's a luncheon at South Shore Harbor Resort. This will not be a hybrid. This is only in person. For that event, we are going to socially distance, spread the tables out, have fewer people per table, that kind of thing. We are still going to recognize Sean Bailey, our chairman of the board, who just completed Poor Thing this year. And Bob Davey, who just came on October 1st as our new chairman of the board. We have some retiring directors to recognize. We have division chairs and liaisons and people like that. But really, we want to celebrate each other and see each other and know that we're still here and we're still rocking and rolling. I see Richard right there. We're still rocking. Anyway, that's happening November 10th. If you want to get information about that, you can holler at any of us or go to the website, and we'll get you handled for that. And it's so great to see y'all. I'm sorry, our phone rang off the wall. I turned off my video because I promised Montoya I'd answer phones, and Cindy and I were going nuts. So sorry about that. It was a great program.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sherry. Again, thank you to Brooke and Gayla and Kia for this wonderful presentation today. I'll be sending out some follow-up information as well as the video after this. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to our fearless chairman of this group, Hillary, as well as the rest of our committee. You guys are wonderful, and we look forward to seeing you next time, as well as seeing you out and about before then too. I don't want it to be a whole month before I see your faces.
And I'll make sure that Brooke includes the link to the mental health and COVID update briefing on the 19th as her part of her follow-up. So you guys can just register from there, okay?
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Have a
Alrighty.
great day, everyone.
Bye, all.
Bye-bye.